Welcome to the Hytale Machinima Tools Crash Course. I'm going to attempt to teach you everything you need to know about how to use the tools inside of Hytale in order to create your own videos. By the time you're done watching this video, if you've paid attention, you should be able to create something like this. Children, settle down, please. Everyone settle down. Today we're talking about server hosts. Can anyone tell me why Gportal is a fantastic server host? Timmy, can you tell us why Gportal is a fantastic server host?
Because sign up is super easy and it only takes like 3 clicks.
That's one reason. Yes. Anybody else?
Because setup is instant and their servers are really stable.
That's another excellent answer. Good job, Karen. Anybody else? Come on, y'all were supposed to study for this.
Oh, I know. Because you can play with your friends?
I mean, that's true, but you can do that with any server host. You didn't do your homework, did you, Bobby? Come on, class. This is a very easy question to answer if you all just did your homework. Yes, Kevin, what do you got for me? Come on, I know you studied.
Because GameCloud lets you swap out your server for a different game pretty much whenever you want.
Yes, that's a fantastic answer. GameCloud is indeed amazing and does allow you to swap out pretty much any of your games whenever you want. All right, bonus question. Let's see who really did their homework. How can you get a discount on the first month of your server?
Ooh.
Yes, Claire, what do you got for me?
Doesn't Firespark put a description in the link of every one of his videos that lets you click it in order to get a discount on the first month of your server?
If you're talking about the content creator on YouTube, Firespark81, putting a link in the description of all of his videos that gets you a discount on the first month of your server, yes, that is correct. And it also helps support Firespark81 as well. So if you're a fan of the work that he does, using that link helps to ensure that he gets to continue providing you with the videos that you enjoy. All right, wonderful job, students. I'm glad to see that you all studied and did your homework, except for you, Bobby. You're a terrible student and you should feel bad. Okay, on to today's main topic, pork. Is it really the king of meats? Special thanks to Gportal for sponsoring today's episode. Before we get into the tools, I just want to teach you 2 things real quick that are very helpful for creating movies and stuff like that. If you need to record your own character, you can do it with the Machinima tools, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. You can hit F4 to detach the camera from your character, and then you can pan around your character or just pan around whatever you want on your own. You can lock the camera by hitting F5, and then that allows you to move your character. So you can hit F4 to position the camera outside of your character, on your character how you want, and then you can hit F5 to stabilize it and go back to moving your character. You can also hit F8 in order to hide the UI. So the first thing you need to do in order to get started, once you load into your creative world, is you need to hit enter and type /op space self. This opts you and gives you access to all of the extended creative tools. Next, you need to get the Machinima tool, which is under the tab that is furthest to your right, and then there's tabs underneath that. You want to click the little camera, and then you will see the camera tool. You can just click that and drag that down to your hotbar. I already have one, so I don't need to grab one. Next, you need to create a scene, and in order to do that, you need to press the letter N on your keyboard, and that will bring up this screen that you see here. Click the create button, and then give your scene a name, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. Just help you keep track of what's going on in the scene. Next thing you're going to do is create your first actor. Actors can be a variety of different things, but your first one that we're going to create here and go over is how to use the cameras. So you're going to create a camera actor. It should be set to camera by default, but if it's not, just make sure you click the little drop down and select the camera actor. Then call it whatever you want. Now you want to select that actor, and in order to do that, you just click anywhere on that line where it is at. Once I do this, you can see that the color changes on my screen. That is because the camera is currently in my head, and as soon as I back away, we can see the camera. So now that we've done this, we need to set a specific setting, and this is just going to slow everything down and make everything a lot easier to manage. Without doing this, everything is going to be much faster and a much larger scale, and this just helps to keep things more manageable. To do this, you're just going to hit enter and type .mach, M-A-C-H, space, FPS 10. This means that every 10 frames this Machinima goes, 1 second will have passed. Now do note that this isn't going to make any of your stuff choppy. It's still going to be at whatever the game frame rate is, whatever you have it set at. This just governs how quickly that playhead moves across the different keyframes. Now your camera may look a little different and it may not have that field of view there showing you where the camera is seeing. You can turn this on or off by hitting Shift C, and you can hide everything by hitting I. You can pop inside of whatever camera you have selected to see exactly what that camera sees by hitting C, and then you just hit C again again in order to get out of it. Okay, let's place another camera. There's a few different ways you can do this, but the way I like doing it is the way that gives you the maximum amount of control, because you can just hit X. You can move and hit X, and when you do that, it's just going to place a keyframe at a predetermined near the end of wherever it's currently at, and it's not very accurate. To get accuracy is really easy to do. So you hit left and right arrow keys on your keyboard will scroll through or scrub through the timeline, and you can see that up at the top left-hand corner, it has our frame, and it shows us what frame we are on. So I'm just going to go to frame 10, because remember, we set our frame rate to 10 FPS. This means that I know if I go to frame 10 that 1 second has passed. This makes it super easy to set these things up. Since I have the camera selected, I've moved forward in the timeline to frame 10, and I have moved to where I want the camera to be at frame 10 and to look at where I want it to look at frame 10. All I have to do is hold down Shift and hit X. Once I do this, it places a new camera at this location, and at this time, as you can see here, if we hit N to bring up our Machinima editor, you can see we have our frame at 10. And if I hit R on the keyboard, that resets us back to frame 0, and then I hit P on the keyboard, and that will play out our current video. And when I do that, you can see that the camera will pan from the first spot to the second spot. Now, currently it just pans at a straight line, and let's say we want a nice curve on there so we can get some of those really cool, like curvy cinematic camera shots. You can move any of these cameras at any given point of time. If you have the camera tool in your hand, you just click on them and that will select them, and then they will be stuck to your cursor, and you can move them wherever you want to move them. Once you have them where you want them, you just left click again and you will put them down. Now I can use my left and right arrow keys in order to scrub through the timeline to see where the camera will be at different points in the timeline. Currently at frame 5, it is pretty much smack dab in the middle. So if I want to put another camera here so that I can edit where it is at this point in time in the timeline, let's say pull it back or push it up or down or whatever, all I have to do is hit Shift X, and this will place a new keyframe down at this specific point in the timeline, also giving me a new camera at that point to manipulate. Then I can just drag it back, and you can see now we got a nice curve from our start to finish, and it's not just a straight line. And if I look at our first camera and I right click it in order to select it, and then hit C in order to jump inside of it, then hit P in order to play through our timeline, you can see that we get a nice smooth pan. But currently it's a bit too fast, and I want to slow things down a bit so we get a nice long pan around whatever we would be panning around. In order to do this, we just hit N in order to bring up our editor, and then we can click any of these keyframes down here and just drag them to wherever we want. There is the time over on the right hand side. We can click inside of that box and set a specific time as well to wherever we want a keyframe to be. Do note that hitting enter currently doesn't do anything. In order to get that setting to actually stick, if you put that number in there, you just need to click on any of those other boxes down there below. You don't need to do anything in those boxes. You just need to click so that your cursor goes inside of one of those boxes instead of the time box. Otherwise, it doesn't set. If you click out of it anywhere else without doing that, it won't set the time. It'll just stay at whatever it was at. It's really frustrating. These tools are very janky currently, but by making these changes, you can see that it slows down the time it takes the camera to travel pretty significantly. So I've taught you that you can click any of these cameras to reposition them, but what if you want to tilt them or move them only in one direction, like up, down, left, or right, without dragging them in any other direction? All of those things are possible as well. So if you're looking at the camera and you hold down Alt and hit left click on it, you will see it brings up this red, blue, and green radial thingamadoodles. You can click any one of these and then drag them around in order to rotate it in that specific direction. If you hold down Shift and click, you get arrows that show up, once again, red, green, and blue, allowing you to click and drag it in any of these different axes, axi, whatever. You get the idea. Up, down, left, right, forward, backwards. These controls allow you to fine tune the view of your camera at each of the different positions. You can do this on any of the keyframes in order to move the view between the different keyframes, and it will just interpolate as it goes on. So if you start the first one, for example, looking straight up and the last one looking down, well, it's just going to go from up to down as it goes through the path. But with our current setup, it just ends when it gets to the last frame and then it immediately resets. And I don't want that. I want it to hold for a minute on that last frame. To do this, we're going to use a little bit of a workaround trick. So we are going to create a new actor. We're going to select reference, just call it whatever you want. These references are used or should be used or be able to be used for something very specific that we're not going to cover in this video because it's currently broken and doesn't work, but it does work for this purpose here. Now click anywhere on your timeline to create another keyframe for this reference object. And then you just drag it to however many seconds you want it to wait after your last keyframe for your camera. camera pan. So for here, I've set it to 30 so that it will last a full 1 second before the video ends. And you can see now that when I activate the video that we get a nice pan around and then it lingers for a second, literally 1 second on that last keyframe. Now, before we move on to some slightly more complex stuff, I want to show you one other way you can quickly rough out a scene with these cameras besides just picking them up and dragging them around. You can hit the letter T on your keyboard. It will tell you to select a specific actor. In this case, it's a camera, at which point we left click on our camera. And now that camera is attached to us, and wherever we move to and look at, that will reposition that camera. Once we have the shot that we want, all we have to do is left click and it will place that camera down. This is really handy for making a big change to a large section of a shot, for example, than it is just clicking it and trying to move it. It's just much easier to attach the camera to yourself, look at the new location, fly around to wherever you want it, and then hit left click in order to drop it down. And then from there, you can use the fine tuning methods I taught you earlier in order to just dial in the shot. Do know that you can change the field of view of your camera at any given point of time. If you don't like the current field of view that it has set, just go into your editor. So hit N on your keyboard, right click on that camera track and click settings. And then from there, you can adjust the field of view to whatever you want it to be. All right, so now that we've covered camera control, let's talk about entities. To add an entity, we're just going to click that little plus sign again, and then we are going to select entity from the drop down. Once again, name it whatever you want to name it. By default, it's just going to give you a default person. You can click them and drag them around the same way we were doing the camera. If you want to snap them to surfaces to ensure that they're staying on the ground, you just hold down the shift key. This will snap them to the ground or anything else that's a surface nearby. Now, when you hold down Alt to fine tune their movement, they're a little bit different than the camera. There's a top and a bottom. The top one is to position where their head is looking, and the bottom one positions the orientation of their body. Now, I want to point out something here, and you're going to see examples of this later on. The orientation for the head is currently broken. It doesn't move once you set it. It should move from one position to another, but in the current version of the game at the time I'm making this video, it does not. You can see that it updates the numbers properly in the editor when we look at the entity's values inside the editor, but they just don't update inside the game when you're playing through the animation. The body will update in turn, but the head will not. But it's still good to know that you can hold down Alt and select the top in order to manipulate the head, just the same as we do the cameras, or select the bottom to manipulate the body. Do note that if you're turning the head left or right, that it will eventually turn the body as well. However, you can look up and down and flip the head totally inside the body. It won't flip the body. All right, so let's talk about how you can change this little guy into something else. Hit N to bring up the editor, right click on the entity track and select edit settings. From here, we can change the scale and select the specific model we want to use. But how do we know what model to use? Because it doesn't tell us or give us any type of drop-down menu to show us the different models we have to select from. In order to find the names of all of the different models, we can look inside the asset editor. This has all of the names inside of it. And we can access the asset editor by going up to the top where it says assets and clicking asset editor. This ships with the game and it will just pop up a different program, whole new window that is the asset editor. So let's talk about the asset editor real quick, because you're going to need to know how to navigate this thing to find the names of specific things, including all of the different entities as well as animations. Once you open this program, it may look a little intimidating, but I assure you it's not. There's really only one folder that we're going to be worried about, and that is the model assets folder. Once you click on this folder, it will give you a drop down of a whole list of a bunch of other folders. Each of these folders contains the different entity names that you're going to be looking for in order to type in that box. So for this example, let's say we want to spawn in a lamb. We scroll down until we find livestock and we click that one to open it, and then we look for lamb. Right here it is, and we click it and it shows us that that's the name we're going to type in there. All of these different file names, these file names are the names that you type in that box. So for example, bison calf, you need to type in exactly as it shows up here. If you do it wrong, your game crashes and you know you've done it wrong. So when filling out that box for the entity name that you want to spawn, you need to make sure that you type it in exactly as it is seen here. So for this example, I'm just going to type capital L-A-M-B. If we were doing something like a boar piglet, I would type in capital B, lowercase o-a-r, underscore, make sure you get the underscore in there, capital P-I-G-L-E-T. Now, while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about animations, because we're going to cover animations later. So when we want the name of animations, you can see where it says show all properties here. Underneath there, we have animations. If I click that to highlight it, we get a whole list of animations that this little lamb is capable of. So these are what we type into the animations box when we want to do a specific animation. So for example, if we want it to walk, we just type walk, we could have it fall, we could have it jump sprint, jump run, you name it. These are the animations here that it can actually do. So when we are in the editor, anytime a box comes up and it doesn't have some type of drop down option to it and we need to find an option, this is where you can find those different options is inside this asset editor. So inside the editor, we right click on the entity that we want to edit, we click edit settings, and then in the model for this example, we're just going to type lamb. Once we save the changes, you can see it pops into a little lamb. Now at this point, it works just like I told you with the humanoid character. You can move its head, body, whatever, pick it up, click it, drag it around. But let's say we want to make it move in a path from point A to point B. Well, we go to where we want it to move to, we select the frame that we want to create a keyframe at, and we hold down shift and hit X. And just like with the camera, you can see that this little guy will move across that path. But it's a little quick, and where he's moving from point A to point B is a little short, so we want him to move a longer distance. All we have to do is click that second keyframe that we created and move it to wherever else we want it. And now that is the new point B. But let's say you don't want him to move in a straight line and you only want to have 2 keyframes. Well, we can create a curve by using a specific command that gives us additional controls. All we need to do is hit enter, type in .mach space bezier. That creates these new handles for us to go over and click and grab just like we do any of the other keyframes. And when we grab them and move them, you can see that it starts to create a curve in the path that the little lamb is going to take. Do note that this little trick is not specifically for entities. You can do this with your cameras as well. So now that I've got a nice little path that this guy is going on and I'm happy with it, I want to animate him so that it looks like he's walking. So to do this, we hit N to bring up the editor. Then we select the keyframe we want the action to start happening. I want him to be doing this right from the get-go. So I'm going to select the first keyframe. Note that you can do this on any keyframe and the action will trigger specifically on that keyframe. So if I wanted him to not start walking until the halfway point, I would put a keyframe at the halfway point and then have him start walking there. Once we have selected the keyframe, we click over here to the side where it says events and then we click add event. It should default to animation, but if it doesn't, it's a drop-down box of different selections. Just click that drop-down box and select animation, then click add event. Then this is going to add the event. From there, you click on edit. So you just highlight over the event. It'll give you the option to click the edit button, and then that will bring up the edit keyframe event. It's already selected on movement. There's a bunch of different options there under that top drop-down, but the one we want is movement. So we're just going to leave it there. And this is where we put the animation ID. I already told you where to find those. Just find the specific one that you want for whatever you need it to do. For this example, we're just going to use walk. Now this can be a little finicky at times and it doesn't like to play the same animation back to back. There's a whole bunch of little finicky issues that you'll have to deal with. Sometimes if it doesn't immediately start working, just play it a couple of times, give it a second, it'll eventually start working. As you can see, our little guy is now just continuously walking. You can also take note here that his head should turn, but it doesn't. It stays fixed in the position that he was looking from the start instead of where it should be on the final position, as the bug that I stated before does indeed exist across all entities. Now, one final thing, there are different events that we can add. One that might be helpful to you is the particle event. Click add event, select it the same way we do with adding the animation, and this time you'll actually have a drop-down menu when you click to edit the event after you have created it. From there, you can just select the type of particle that you want to use. For this one, we're going to do a firework, so he will start walking. When he gets to the end of his walk, he will shoot off a little firework. And that is your crash course. That's pretty much all there is to it. With this, you should be able to create all kinds of cool videos. The main thing you're going to be able to do now and get it to look good with no effort is just panning with the camera and getting really cool shots of builds, at least until they fix the entity's head movement, because it's a little wonky. If you're going to do a bunch of stationary stuff with zooms, pans, stuff like that, different steady animations where they're not moving around or looking around, you can totally do that. But we're really going to need to be able to control their heads from one keyframe to another to get really good animations. And until they fix that, we're just kind of screwed for any type of intricate animations. But once they do, all of the things that you learned here should be valuable to you in creating those cool kind of animations. Hopefully you found this video helpful and informational. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell so you can be notified when I upload other videos. And if you're looking for some more of my content, you can find a link to another one of my videos on the screen right now. I want to give an absolute massive shout out and thank you to all of my channel supporters. You all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to become an official channel supporter, check out the links in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and share your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.